Mohamed Ibn Chambas, welcome to Live on Live. Thank you for joining us today. You're here on a European tour to raise funds to help the Cameroon-Nigeria Mixed Commission, as its full name, to implement the demarcation of the border between the two countries. Now, the ruling was made by the International Court of Justice in 2002. Most people will remember the spat between the two countries over the Bakassi Peninsula, and it took until 2008 before Nigeria finally freed or left the Bakassi Peninsula and let the Cameroonians take over the administration, take over. Now, first of all, what is your funding target on this tour of Europe?
Well, let me say just to begin with that remarkable work has been done by the two countries within the framework of the Cameroon-Nigeria Mixed Commission, which the UN chairs, which I chair. And this is demonstrated by the fact that of the 2,100-kilometer frontier, 2,000 of it now is demarcated and agreed by the two countries. It's a good example of what can be achieved when two countries work in the context of peaceful resolution of a dispute. We are at a point where we want to proceed with the construction of pillars along this long frontier. We have a budget of approximately $14 million, and this is what we're asking partners of the two countries to contribute to ensure that the work can proceed. Let me also add quickly that the countries themselves have demonstrated their commitment to provide money into this trust fund. So both Cameroon and Nigeria have pledged 1.5 million each, that will be a total of 3 million, for the trust fund, and we hope that this will encourage the partners of the two countries to make a contribution to the trust fund.
And how much have you raised so far?
Well, I prefer probably not to get into numbers at this point.
Now, we're talking about the two countries, Nigeria and Cameroon. We're talking about touch on the Bakassi Peninsula, problems it created for a while. Now, of course, there's the north part and the Lake Chad Basin. Now, Boko Haram are obviously and notoriously active in the area. There is, however, a multinational joint task force, which started in 1994, and if Nigerians, and in 2012, actually had its mandate extended to fight counterterrorism because of Boko Haram. However, it seems that last year, in January 2015, its headquarters in Baga was overrun by Boko Haram. It started there, and the local people, a lot of them were massacred as a result. Since then, Boko Haram has actually been on the back foot, but they are still active. Now, how much has been achieved by the task force, and why is there this persistence of a Boko Haram threat in the area, despite all the money being spent on it? I'm talking, for instance, of the 50 million euros pledged by the EU this summer in August, actually to provide them, amongst other things, with a control and command center. So why is it that the results are still slow to come?
There are a number of issues embedded in the question, but first of all, let me say that going back to the question of the common frontier and the demarcation, the 100 kilometers left happens to be in the area where Boko Haram is active. And this, in my view, has slowed down completion of the demarcation process. Of course, there is modern technology now, desktop technology, GMS, etc., which can allow us to continue with the work, and we are continuing. I believe that if we're able to, in spite of the inability to send people on the ground physically, build on the good faith and the good relations, complete this frontier, it will strengthen the resolve of the two countries, Cameroon and Nigeria, to face, standing together with each other, Boko Haram terrorism. And we're already seeing that. You will recall that soon after coming to power, Nigerian President Buhari visited his colleague, President Biya of Cameroon, who in turn has already paid 2 official visits to Nigeria. So at the summit level, at the very highest level, we see tremendous cooperation between the 2 countries. This has also translated into their working together in the framework of the multinational joint task force, which is fully operational now, involving all 4 countries of the Lake Chad Basin area. That is Nigeria, Cameroon, but also Chad and Niger. My last visit to the headquarters, which is in N'Djamena, was in August, and I was very impressed.
The force coming in there after Baga, yes, after Baga.
That is correct. That is correct. I think it's been moved to N'Djamena. It's a strategic move which is welcomed by all the countries. It's a much more secure area. But from there, they are leading the operations, which involve joint operations by all the forces. In some theaters, 2 countries working together, such as Nigeria and Cameroon, around areas near to Sambisi and the common borders between Nigeria and Cameroon. And then in other areas, you have Nigeria, Chad, and Niger, particularly in the Difa province of Niger, that is in the southeast of Niger, where Boko Haram is active. So these operations by the MNJTF are largely responsible for what we see now, which is pushing Boko Haram into just pockets of areas where they used to operate. They used to be practically all over the place. Indeed, you recall that, for instance, in Borno State, out of 27 local government areas, Boko Haram was present in 23. Today, there's not a single local government area occupied by Boko Haram, which is not to say that Boko Haram is defeated and, gone.
No, they struck again on Tuesday night, for instance, got Tari, which is, 10 kilometers away from Chibok, where the Boko Haram abducted some 200 schoolgirls.
That is correct. And then we also see them operating in Niger, in Difa County occasionally, but they are reduced to engaging in sporadic attacks here and there. Their infrastructure, to a large extent, is totally destroyed now, but they still retain a certain capacity to be of nuisance, and of course extreme nuisance with the death and destruction that they create. However, here we have a demonstration of what can be achieved if the countries continue to work together, to collaborate together, and to accept cross-border operations as is happening now. So we need to continue to mobilize the international community to support the efforts of these countries. We're pleased that Nigeria itself, in spite of economic difficulties facing, has been able to provide 100 million to this joint effort. But also, as you know, the EU has provided significant resources. Then in the area of intelligence sharing, information sharing, we have the French, the British, the US, who are providing necessary support. We need more such international support to be able to win decidedly the war against Boko Haram.
Any such threat cannot be defeated militarily, as is often said, even by the military men themselves. Now, how much of an effort is being made on the ground to actually win over the local populations there, particularly those where Boko Haram are particularly active? Because it's been said there is a certain amount of sympathy for the cause, especially when central government troops arrive and behave in a rather brutal way. So how much is being done on the ground to win them over, to make sure that poverty and violence do not actually lead them into the arms of Boko Haram?
There must be a deliberate effort also to win hearts and minds. And this has been a principal message of the UN to the MNGTF countries. In that regard, we've always talked about the need to respect human rights and the rules of war, that even in war there are rules, and they need to be respected, and the population need to feel that the military forces are there to protect them against the harm being brought by Boko Haram, and not the other way around. So specific areas of engagement have been training of these troops in humanitarian and human rights laws, and ensuring that these are integrated into the operational orders that commanders give, and that each soldier going out there is very conscious about the need to focus their efforts at fighting Boko Haram and to avoid any actions that might be targeting civilian populations, and in the process could be driving these civilian populations into the arms of Boko Haram. There is, of course, the humanitarian dimension, and there again, the UN, through its agencies such as OCHA, indeed mobilizing all UN agencies, funds, and programs to ensure that we're able to respond timely to the urgent and pressing needs of the populations for food, for medicines, etc. And this is being done. I must indeed commend also international and local NGOs and humanitarian workers who, at tremendous risks to their lives, are on the ground, be it in Borno State in Nigeria, be it in extreme northeast of Cameroon, or in Diffa country, the Diffa province of Niger. They are there working with communities in distress, with internally displaced persons and refugees. And this work is highly commended.
One question which a lot of people will be interested to hear your answer to is the fate of the Chibok girls. Now, a number of them have been freed, whether in return for the freedom of a number of activists or not. But how do you see the crisis being solved before these girls become grandmothers? What can the UN do? What, in your opinion, can be done without waiting for years to come?
Well, it is evident from the release of the 21 girls that the Nigerian government is doing all it can and focusing on the release of the Chibok girls and the thousands of other thousands of other hostages being held by Boko Haram. And as you know, during the meeting between President Buhari and Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in New York, the Nigerian government expressed its openness and indeed invited the UN to deploy all efforts it could to assist, to facilitate every effort that could be made for the release of the Chibok girls and other. So we are working in this. I've indeed been mandated by Secretary General to work closely with the Nigerian authorities. We are talking to different countries and international organizations, NGOs, who have some experience in these kinds of situations. And we will continue to give priority to the release of these girls, working in support of the efforts of the Nigerian authorities.
Are you also talking to Boko Haram?
No.
Have you been mandated to do that?
No, because we would rather support the efforts of the Nigerian government, and if there are other institutions which are better placed to do that, what is important and what we should keep our eyeball on is ensuring that these girls are released and in good health, and that we minimize any loss of life in any efforts to obtain their release. They've been held away from their families for way too long, and every effort should be made to return them and to unite them with their families.
Mohamed Ibn Chambas, thank you very much for joining us today on Live on Live.
Thank you.